Okay, let's get started. Welcome to another SK Wealth Academy podcast. And today, this is a podcast that those of you that have downloaded my Golden Gift ebook at my new site at malamalama.com/WordPress will really enjoy, in my opinion. So, and for those of you that are wondering what Golden Gift ebook, well, that was a ebook that I made available for a limited time only to my newsletter subscribers. So I made it available to only the first 300 people that downloaded it, and then after that I took it off my news site. So I am going to make it available again for download, free of charge, to anyone that desires. I might not even cap it at another 300. I might just make it available for a limited time. So if you would like to know, that will happen within the next 6 weeks. Just subscribe to my newsletter. How can you subscribe to my absolutely free newsletter? Just go to my news site, which you can find in the show link below, malamalama.com/WordPress, and sign up to my newsletter, and I will inform you of my newsletter when the link will go up on my news site for you to download that ebook. So basically, in that ebook, I discussed why, if there was a society that was stranded on an island, on a tropical island in the middle of nowhere, completely cut off to the rest of the world, why that narrative that our current global fiat currency system is the best we can do, because there would be almost 0% chance of our current global fiat currency system being the one that was determined by a society stranded on an island cut off from the rest of the world. So I tell that story in a parable. And it also harkens back to the days, which were not that long ago, just maybe 100 years ago in the early 1900s, when U.S. senators routinely took to the floor of Congress to bash the central banking system that was being plotted at the time, that came into existence in 1913. And after that happened, they continued to take the floor of the U.S. Congress to call the fiat currency system that was brought into existence, that we still use today, as completely wicked, immoral, inequitable, and unjust. And that's a lot of monetary history that's been censored from history books, that people do not know that when people were once, not too long ago, because as I said, this is only about 108 years ago, that Americans knew what was going on with central banking, knew that was a wicked, immoral, ungodly system, and they routinely called that system wicked on the floor of Congress. Now, if you say that, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? So in this particular podcast, I'm going to discuss in life how our choices are really in many ways vast as the universe itself. But because we are born into an expectation of using certain systems, which include our monetary system, our education system, our career system, which are the three most important pillars that rule our lives from birth to death. Most of us, unfortunately, rule out most of our choices that provide us with freedom of choice before even considering them. So much like how many people have resorted to self-censorship, saying, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that, I can't say this on social media, I can't even post my true feelings because I might get canceled, because if it goes against the oligarch narrative, so many people have been brainwashed by the oligarchs that they get furious. They feel that you're endangering their health if you're not abiding to totalitarian mandates, and you may get canceled. So people engage in self-censorship. So this is kind of like a podcast of how we all engage in self-censorship, not just in speech, because in this particular case, I was just talking about speech and writing, but we engage in self-censorship in far more important choices of our life. Like I said, the pillars of money, education, and career. So the visible spectrum of light only constitutes 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, right? So there is 99.9965% of the electromagnetic spectrum that is not visible to the naked human eye without any other visible aids, like infrared light or other bandwidths of light we cannot see without the aid of certain goggles or technology and so forth. So that very slim bandwidth of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. It's not like I believe that we are confining ourselves to only 0.0035% of all choices in regards to the monetary system, our career choices, and our education system. But I do feel as if we are negating perhaps 90% of our choices from the jump. So we're not even considering 90% of the choices out there, perhaps because we don't know that they exist, because we're born into certain systems. That's all we know. So we think it is the best when that is far from the truth. Now, you might even say that this podcast, I'll tell you, if you have been following me for a while and you watched my podcast, which I'll put in the podcast show notes below, the link if you are interested in Mr. Robot. I thought that was a phenomenal TV series. And in fact, it's the only TV series I can remember watching quite faithfully in the past decade. I don't think there's any other, like Game of Thrones. I started watching that just because other people watched it, but I didn't even get past season 2. There's really not been any TV series I find important enough to keep watching season after season. Mr. Robot, I think, was the only one, perhaps in my entire lifetime, that I watched all 4 seasons. But I only made a podcast about season 4 because I thought it provided a lot of brilliant, biting social commentary that a lot of people may have missed. The storyline in itself was, I thought, very rich and contextual, but because I remember some of the social commentary being about how so many of us engage in idol worship of the rich and famous, not because they are great human beings, not because they have some great upstanding character and exhibit great courage in fighting for truth, but simply a lot of society engages in idol worship because they're just filthy rich, which is not a reason to, because a lot of times people that are filthy rich have stepped on the bones of others, of the weary and the poor, and destroyed them to become that rich. Or, like, example, Raymond Sackler of Purdue Pharmaceuticals, who hooked hundreds of thousands of Americans on opioid addiction, and that's how he became rich. But he was known for a philanthropist for decades before he was outed as being this really type of scumbag. So, again, a lot of people just worship people simply for their fame and wealth without even understanding if they're good people, which is ludicrous. So that's why I looked into that. And then also, Mr. Robot also had very, very, very biting commentary on the immorality of our current global banking and monetary system that I thought was really insightful. Okay, so this is how I'm going to get started, okay? So I'm going to show you pictures of what all our choices look like, and I'm going to use like a Damien Hirst. And for those of you that watched other podcasts of mine and heard my commentary and my feelings and opinions about modern art that I don't even find fits my definition of art, that's so simplistic, you'll get a kick out of why I chose these Damien Hirst polka dot paintings to show the amount of choices we have, but the fact that we only will pick from a very, very condensed group of choices and ignore the entire realm of choices. So let's get started. So I'm going to show you pictures of what all our choices look like, and I'm going to use like a Damien Hirst. And for those of you that watched other podcasts of mine and heard my commentary and my feelings and opinions about modern art that I don't even find fits my definition of art, that's so simplistic, you'll get a kick out of why I chose these Damien Hirst polka dot paintings to show the amount of choices we have, but the fact that we only will pick from a very, very condensed group of choices and ignore the entire realm of choices. So let's get started. Okay, because as you saw, we have thousands of media outlets from which to choose our news consumption, but we all choose CNN, Fox, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, New York Times, maybe on social media, Twitter, and Facebook as our news provider. So in other words, a very, very small group of news providers, and a lot of those news providers are actually owned by the same parent group as well. So it's, you might be listening to several news providers, but you're getting the same narrative, the same slant and bias to a news story because it's all owned by the same parent group. So in doing so, we allow these media outlets to very easily control and manipulate our beliefs about many topics and divert our beliefs away from reality. So it's quite ironic that people scream and yell about their delusions, because a lot of these beliefs that people hold so close to their hearts and fight so hard and argue so hard over are really delusional beliefs that's propaganda coming from these very tightly controlled media outlets, whether these beliefs are about the virus, about wars, about politics, or about financial news and price mechanisms of certain asset classes like stocks, bonds, real estate, etc. Okay, the second, I just showed you like the same kind of graphic about how there are literally dozens, in this case not thousands, there are literally thousands of media outlets. We ignore the most truthful ones. Here there are literally dozens of monetary systems available for our utilization, and I'm all for monetary competition. So again, I've always said I'm all for cryptocurrencies existing, even though I think they're a big Trojan horse, in particular like Bitcoin. If a cryptocurrency were 100% backed by a hard asset like gold or silver, then I'd be all for that cryptocurrency. But I know there are some cryptocurrencies, but I don't think the cryptocurrency using the blockchain for security backed 100%, not fractionally backed. We got to get rid of this everything fractional in the financial system is terrible. We need 100% backing of this currency with physical gold, and I'll be all behind it. But I don't think something like that, because it's sound money, would ever be endorsed by central bankers, would ever be endorsed even by the masses of people, because as I told you, whatever the masses believe is usually wrong about finance, wrong about cryptocurrencies, wrong about gold, wrong about the stock markets, because they're being manipulated by those that control media that produce these propaganda narratives. So there are literally dozens of monetary systems. Allow them all to compete, because I always believe the cream will rise to the top, and it will eventually just come down to the one that is the most sound, which people will choose. Of course, we don't have any choice. It's a monopoly controlled by central banks. We only have fiat currencies that are allowed to be used in widespread circulation. So we all bow down to this one system, and to which we are born. As I said, is the false narrative is, well, if there were a better system, I'd be all for it, but there's no better system. This is the best we could do, so that's why I back it. Again, just go read my ebook, The Golden Gift, sign up for my newsletter. I'll tell you when that's going to go online. Read it, you'll understand exactly why that entire narrative is false. It's more propaganda coming from the bankers. And we have zero consideration, unfortunately, because we've been brainwashed for centuries, of any other monetary system is possibly being better than the one to which we pledge our undying obedience for our entire lives, with zero consideration to the possibility that this very system is a system that allows the 0.1% of the wealthiest people in every single nation to hoard 99% of that nation's wealth. Why has that happened? It's because the fiat currency system has built-in advantages to help the wealthiest in every nation continue to get wealthier. Why do you think the only people that benefited from these complete economic lockdowns that have destroyed the finances of billions of people worldwide, the only class of people that benefited were the billionaires, right? Or maybe even the 100 millionaires. But again, the richest of the rich. And we have dozens of various methodologies. Oh, so again, before I move on, we have dozens of monetary systems that are feasible, that are possible. We have sound money not being used. We use the wrong system. Okay, again, we will see from that graphic I just showed, we have dozens of various methodologies or various systems from which to choose how we can become educated. But since we're all born into the narrative that the state and oligarch slash industrialist funded schools are best for us, if we have children, we blindly send our children to these schools. And if we're still of school age, most likely if you're listening to this, you are in one of those institutions of academia. And the reason I call it institutions is because you're becoming institutionalized when you receive your education this way. Just as they say, prisoners and convicts become institutionalized in the prison industrial complex, that they can't, once released, that they don't have any skills except to have learned how to become a better criminal while in prison, so they can't function and become a productive member of society once released back into society. I almost feel like the institutional academic system has similarities to the U.S. prison industrial complex, because once one is graduated from the institutional academic system, it's almost like all what's the word I'm looking for? All sensibilities of complex and critical thinking have been destroyed. So it's very hard to talk. The more I find, the more I actually hate to say educated, because I think there's a big difference between being educated and having very advanced not economic degrees, but educational degrees. I think you could be highly schooled, but yet still very uneducated, in other words. And you could be very uneducated and never have received any schooling whatsoever, because you could be entirely self-educated or homeschooled, or, received education in different ways. So we blindly either go to school or send our kids to school without even a second thought to if we or our children are receiving the proper knowledge they should be taught, which, of course, I just mentioned should include critical thinking skills. Go read my fact sheet of SK Wealth Academy, which I hope to release at some point in 2021. You'll understand when you read about the fact sheet and the curriculum that I'm trying to fill the gap of everything I believe is missing in institutional academia in my 22 course academy, SK Wealth Academy. We should also learn, these are some other subjects I did not address in SK Wealth Academy, but I believe should be vital for all education. So we should also learn how to identify edible plants. We should also learn to, and also identify poisonous plants, because of my failure to identify poison oak that led to just a horrible period for me within this past year. I had rash, this really itchy rash that caused me misery for like a couple of weeks and sleepless nights. So if I just learned how to identify poisonous plants when I was hiking one day, I wouldn't have brushed up against poison oak. And actually, it was still even just on my shirt. And had I known how to treat it, in fact, I did the exact wrong thing. I only I didn't really understand what that rash was until later. And then I went back to the place where I hiked and I saw there was some poison oak there. I didn't understand that it was poison oak at first, so I didn't really research how to treat it properly, and I just took a really long hot shower and tried to scrub it. So instead of taking and wiping off the poison sap first, all I did was I caused myself, like, possibly on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably 10 being the worst case of poison oak, because hot water actually with poison oak, it drives the poison deeper into your skin. So that's all I did was scrub because I took a really long hot shower. So these are things, right, that are important for education. We should know that. We should also learn in education how to develop a healthy gut biome that will keep our bodies functioning at a high level. Because if everyone had a healthy gut biome, if everyone also exercised, we should learn how important nutrition and exercise are to our health. Then really the virus that locked down economies for all of 2020, still ongoing in the first quarter of 2021, really wouldn't have been necessary for the vast majority of everyone under 70. If you're healthy, then the virus, your immune system is going to give you all the protection you really need, because the virus itself is only lethal if you're super unhealthy, right? Or have other chronic diseases, maybe not of your fault. Of course, if you have cancer, leukemia, or something like that, your immune system is going to be lowered, then you would be more at risk. So these are all things that I feel are never taught in the active, what is accepted as the best system of education. But even like things like navigation, right? How to use the sun during the day, the stars at night to navigate directions. Ancient knowledge that has literally saved my life, because one time was hiking alone, got lost deep into the forest, knew how to use the sun to navigate and figure out directions, knew that the way out was southwest, and I was actually heading northeast deeper into the forest, because there's so many switchbacks on the hike, on the trail I was hiking, that it kind of like turned me around and I got lost as far as direction wise. And that, just having that knowledge, I think literally saved my life. I think I would have been just completely lost with no way of understanding how to find my way out. Of course, I just knew, try to find a stream. Streams, rivers always flow downhill. Find a way out. I would have done that. But still, I think I could have been lost for days had I not known how to use sunlight to figure out direction. And we've all thrown ancient knowledge into the rubbish bin. So if we ever face a debilitating disease over the course of our lifetime, so many people don't even know about the term autophagy. If you don't know about the term autophagy, highly recommend you write that down. It's spelled auto, Phagy, autophagy, because that could be one of your best protections as far as keeping healthy late into late age. And because we don't have a lot of what I consider to be basic education, basic knowledge, we often suffer in our quality of lives because we don't have this basic knowledge. So we don't even consider why every child and young adult is groomed in academic classrooms in the same subjects, regardless of talents or even interests. So say they know, some children know from a very young age, right? They want to become a fireman. They want to become a music producer. Then the whole core of their education should be in that particular topic. I mean, some people just know. I mean, they 100% know this is what they want to do. Why do we force them, every child, to take the same amount of subjects? That is just, to me, a very illogical educational system. And even in education topics that I believe should be universal, like mathematics, because someone that wants to produce music may say, why do I need to take mathematics? I'm never going to use that. It's because mathematics is taught in an incorrect manner. Math is a universal language. It's not taught in a manner that's a universal language. And it's only taught in dry and boring, repetitive, rote memorization methodologies that just kill students' curiosity to learn about mathematics, because someone that's a music producer should know math is built in and embedded in music, right? Math is also integral to robotics, to artificial intelligence development, to astronomy, to engineering, to even sports and martial arts. I use mathematics to teach my students how to correctly defend certain counters to certain strikes. I use mathematics. It's within the design of the universe. So mathematics is something that I feel should be taught to everyone. But unfortunately, it is something that's required, but it's just taught in a very horrible and incorrect manner. Okay, now moving on to the last part. Again, consider this scenario, because this scenario should make you question everything about your current existence. So this is a scenario I'm just going to give you. You're born on a remote island in an archipelago that is located in the middle of the ocean, far, far away from any other civilization, much like the Hawaiian Islands. I think the Hawaiian Islands are the most remote islands in the world, like far away from, any other big landmass. And you are one of, say, 500,000 people that live on this island with no other human inhabitants on any other neighboring islands in the archipelago. And by the way, that's not such a far-fetched scenario, because there's a much smaller community of believed to be about 50 to 200 people on an island in the Andaman Sea called the North Sentinel Islands. And actually, I've been on islands that have been pretty close to that island in the Andaman Sea. But you never want to go to that island, because this tribe that lives on the island has never had access with the outside world, is highly, highly protective, and is known to kill any outsider that tries to come onto their island. In any event, because you live on this remote island with 500,000 people, you have no Wi-Fi, you have no smartphones, no internet connection, no use for social media, no use for stocks or bonds or for modern technology, for televisions, no use for brand name goods, no use for fiat currencies like the US dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen. So think about for a second how a lot of people say, oh my God, that is awful. And a lot of people think their quality of life will be worse, right, in such a situation. But here's the scenario I'm setting up. Because with a population of 500,000 people, you live in a really massive island in an environment lucky enough to be teeming with wild animals, one of the biggest rainforests in the world, rich in mineral resources like iron ore, nickel, cobalt, copper, gold, and silver. So your remote civilization over a time span of many, many decades has learned how to grow and cultivate food. You have modern agriculture. You have domesticated some animals. Everyone that was born on the island knows how to hunt from a very young age. So there's plenty of wild pigs and boars to feed everyone on the island. So you eat very well. You eat clean because you don't have any GMOs, you don't have any Roundup, pesticides polluting your waters, you don't have large dairy farms producing all these nitrates, pesticide polluting your fresh water supply. So your food is amongst the cleanest in the world. And you live in a large enough society that's passed on knowledge through many generations that have lived on this island about the island's many medicinal plants. So you have doctors, you have good health care. You might not have like surgeons, so if you need heart surgery, you have to fly to somewhere else to receive that. But for non-major surgeries, everything is good. You've learned how to cull fish from the surrounding ocean and be respectful of nature, so you're not depleting the surrounding oceans of all the fish in it, much like huge corporate fishing does today. And you have respect and understand how to cull the animals that inhabit your huge rainforest in a manner that does not deplete resources, always allows for replenishing of all the island's natural resources to easily provide more than enough food for all its inhabitants. So your society is basically modern in every other aspect. You have a modern society, includes schools, churches, engineers, architects, farmers, teachers, to fulfill all these societal pillars necessary for a very decent and sustainable quality of life. However, having no need for fiat currencies, but still having a need for money, you've come up with a system of forging just silver rounds with some kind of identifying mark on it into money, and everything in your monetary system is purchased in silver weight, in grams of silver, as should be the case with all sound monetary systems. It should be by weight of a precious metal, not by a numerical number of a fiat currency. So you have no need for fiat currencies. If you have a need, like I said, there's gold on the island, you can take some gold and then sell it for dollars and buy whatever's needed in the outside world. But on this island, you have no need. So there's no fiat currencies. Money's not denominated. There's no numbers like 50, 100, 1,000. It's all in grams. It's all by weight. So this requires 5 grams of silver, this requires 10 grams of silver, this requires 20 grams of silver, this requires 100 grams of silver, and so on. So systems been worked out for payment in grams of silver for all skilled laborers for their work, as as well as unskilled laborers on the island. And because the payment for food and other necessities to live, food, housing, everything else, has remained constant per square meter, per kilogram of food item, so on. There's been no inflation because you have sound money for decades. Everyone is fine with what they're paid for their labor too. No need for salary increases every year because everyone has more than enough money to buy what they need. And again, like I told you, silver has no denomination in fiat currency price because everything needed for a good life is available on the island. There's never been a need to deviate from the silver value, which is its true value, the weight in grams, and to price silver. No need to price silver in a false fiat currency for use on the island. And like I said, everyone knows how much an avocado is going to cost. Everyone knows how much a kilo of figs is going to cost. And the prices never deviate from year to year. It remains constant. So even though silver has been crafted into silverware, jewelry, pitchers, silver pitchers for storing water, because as everyone knows, silver has great antibacterial properties, nobody's tried to melt their silver crafts down into monetary rounds because inflation simply doesn't exist on your island with a sound monetary system. And when public transportation systems are free, nobody on your island is worried about keeping up with the Joneses and having flashier material goods than their items, as their determinants of self-worth does not come from the material things they own. So the crazy thing about this scenario is that other than the internet, sports cars, brand name clothes, this self-contained remote island really has everything anyone could want for a really good, fulfilling, purposeful life, including their museums. It's great music. Musical instruments have been crafted by craftsmanship that have been lived on this island for generations. There's great big community social events like luau's. Everyone congregates for grand feasts to celebrate special occasions. And educationally, and on your career path, you can choose any educational path you want. There are schools, yes, with teachers that teach many of the things that I reviewed earlier, like edible plants, poisonous plants, how to navigate using the sun during the day, stars at night, how do you learn about proper nutrition, but you all eat clean food anyways, because that's all you have. You don't have processed junk food on your island, on this island. But you can choose, if your parents are knowledgeable, to school at home. Nobody's going to come tell you you have to send your kid to school or you're going to be arrested and go to prison. You can choose whatever educational path you want. People have written books about all this information, so if you want to school at home, or some people, not a lot of people, have computers, because as I said, there's no real need to connect with the outside world. But some people have computers, and there's even online education programs you can choose to school your children that way if you want. But basically, you're not viewed as a complete alien with, a big bulbous head for choosing an alternate educational path on this island. Everything is good. And the most astonishing thing is you love your life. You would never live anywhere else but this island, but your life has almost no resemblance to how the rest of the world, how all other near 8 billion people on planet Earth live. And with that said, perhaps, hopefully, I'm hoping some of you that have listened to this entire podcast may finally, for the first time in your life, begin to realize that while you have not confined your vision in life to the 0.0035% of choices that is analogous to the visible spectrum of light out of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, perhaps you are beginning to realize by listening to this podcast that you have confined your choices about extremely important pillars of life that determine your entire quality of life to just 5 to 10% without even realizing you have already shut off 90 to 95% of other options that exist in this life. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. If you would find this content valuable, please do me the extremely small favor of hitting the like button, If you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you'll be informed of when I release more podcasts like this. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Podbean, please do subscribe on Podbean because this helps my content get more exposure. I know so many people say, I'm not going to hit the like button, but if you do that, it literally takes you 5 seconds and will help my content get a lot more exposure. And if you like to also receive highly valuable extra bonus content, then you can consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/skwealthacademy. Or if you'd like to help me launch my SK Wealth Academy coming in 2021, you can go to my GoFundMe campaign at gofundme.com/F for fight/SK Wealth Academy, and know that you will receive some benefit from contributing to my academy in some form, whether it's a significant discount on some of the courses or perhaps even one free course. I haven't decided what the benefits will be. And that about wraps it up. So thanks so much for watching. Always remain intensely curious and always remain immensely courageous. So long.